Speak Like Comedians, Decoding Stand-Up Comedy Terms, Part 1. How to Become a Comedian Blogcast Series, Aspiring Comedians Checklist. In this blogcast, I'll guide you through the language of comedy so when you talk to comedians, you won't sound like an idiot. When you're fluent in how comedians speak, then you can check this off your list as you move from being an aspiring to open mic comedian. In my previous blogcast, in the Aspiring Comedians Checklist, I've covered stand-up comedy videos to harden your funny bone, read stand-up comedy blogs to fuel your dreams, study the styles of comedians to unleash your inner comedian, watch stand-up shows to ignite your comedy passion, get your jokeaholic fix, Addict's Guide to Joke Books. These items are the reflectors along the road to guide you down the road to becoming a stand-up comedian without crashing and burning. Check off or jerk off, it's up to you. How learning stand-up comedy terms can benefit you. One of the best ways to become a comedian is to know what's already out there by reading current and classic joke books. Over-imbibe in the endless intoxication of the possibilities of making people laugh. Joke books offer valuable insights into the mechanics of humor and the different techniques used to create jokes. We'll explore why reading classic and current joke books is essential for anyone who wants to become a comedian and master the art of joke writing. Stand-up comedy terms categories. I've put the following stand-up comedy terms into categories so I can get you familiar with some of the most common stand-up comedy terms in their contexts. This is just a way to organize this blogcast, as comedians don't think about their lingo in this manner. Styles of stand-up comedians. There are many styles of comedians out there, each bringing their own unique flair and perspective to the stage. From physical comedians who use their body language and facial expressions to generate laughter to satirical comedians who use humor to critique social and political issues, the world of comedy is diverse and ever-evolving. Here are some terms to investigate some of the styles of funny people. Comedian. 1. Someone who seeks to entertain people by making them laugh. 2. Funny person who uses a character to get laughs. Comics say funny things, comedians say things funny. Ed Wynn. Comic. 1. Someone who seeks to entertain people by making them laugh. Someone who uses jokes to get laughs. Eccentric. Funny people with a unique character or style that move outside of the norms, even for comedians. I can think of 2 eccentric comedians. They are Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey. Prop comic. Perform their jokes, characters, and stunts using gadgets and props. Gallagher or Carrot Top. Storytelling. 1. The vivid description of ideas, beliefs, personal experiences, and life lessons through stories or narratives that evoke powerful emotions and insights. 2. As related to stand-up comedy and Greg Dean's Anatomy of Funny Storytelling, when comedians tell stories from narrator POV to set up scenes, then shift from the narrator POV to inside the scenes and act out the self-POVs and/or the character POVs to expose the humor of the situations, characters, and conflicts. Variety performer. Comedians who do comedy along with other performing skills such as juggling, guitar, magic, ventriloquism, props, etc. The more you know about the different styles of comedians, the better you'll be at determining which you most resemble. Want to test your material in front of a real crowd? Join us for our monthly online open mic nights and perform in a supportive, professional environment. Sign up at gregdeancomedy.com. Comedians' positions and shows. Comedians hold various positions in comedy shows that contribute to the overall laughter and entertainment. Whether you're an aspiring comedian or a fan of comedy, Understanding comedian positions in a show adds depth to knowing where you're headed. Opener. First comedian in the traditional three-comedian stand-up comedy show lineup. Sometimes the opener is also the MC. Feature. The second or middle comedian in the traditional three-comedian stand-up comedy show lineup. I can now do a 30-minute show, so I'm booking myself as a feature. Headliner. 1. The third and last comedian in a traditional stand-up comedy show lineup who has a following and famous enough to attract audience members to fill comedy clubs and does 45 to an hour performance to close the shows. 2. In comedy, a headliner is the main act of a comedy show, typically the most well-known or experienced comedian who performs the final and longest set of the night, usually after the opening acts. MC. Persons who introduce performers in a lineup. Paid regular. Comedians selected by owners or management of comedy clubs to frequently perform and get paid a small stipend for every show. Unpaid regular. Comedians who frequently perform at a particular showcase comedy club but does not get paid because they are getting stage time and experience in front of live audiences. As you enter the doors of stand-up comedy club and rooms, this is part of the lingo you'll need to know. Aspects of being a stand-up comedian. There are many related concepts that are part of being a comedian. Here are some of the things you'll need to know as you step into the role of comedian. Road comic professionals are comedians who travel to do comedy club work outside their residential city to make a living doing stand-up comedy. 5 LPMs, abbreviation for laughs per minute. 5 or more laughs per minute is the professional standard for stand-up comedy shows. Bumped, comedian being pushed to later time slot within the show's lineup, often by known comedians, asking for unscheduled stage time. As a non-paid regular, when any famous comedians drops in, I'm the first to get bumped. Flop sweat. The monsoon of facial perspiration one secretes while bombing. When I bomb, I get a bad case of flop sweat. Green room personality. Personality or manner comedians reveal when they are off stage or in the green room, which can be different from their on-stage personality or manner. She has bad green room personality because of the constant complaining. Wind down. After shows, when comedians come down from the excitement and stress of performing by getting something to eat, drinking or using drugs, or socializing until they are calm or numb enough to be able to sleep, hence wind down. This selection runs the gambit of the aspects of being a comedian. Then each of these will lead you to even more. So much to learn and plenty of time to do so. Material and joke writing. The key to writing great material and jokes is to tap into your creativity and unique perspective. Start by observing the world around you and finding humor in everyday situations. What makes you laugh? What absurdities do you notice in your daily life? Here's some of the info you need to know about jokes. One-liners and short jokes using a setup and a punchline, called one-liners, yet most contain 2 sentences. Setup. 1. First of 2 parts of one-liner jokes designed to misdirect the audience to a false expectation. 2. As related to Greg Dean's joke structure, the part of jokes that establish the target assumption or expected meaning of the connector. I rewrote the setup so it would more clearly misdirect the audience. Punchline. Second of 2 parts of one-liner jokes meant to get a laugh. 2. As related to Greg Dean's joke structure, the second part of jokes that express the reinterpretation or unexpected meaning of the connector. Long for punch. The joke got a bigger laugh when I shortened the punchline. Tag. Additional short punchline immediately following a punchline or tag that does not require a new setup. For Father's Day, I took my father out. It only took 7 shots. Tag, I could always outdrink him. Premise. 1. generally referred to as an idea for a joke or routine, message of a routine, nugget of truth. Any idea, topic, germ of a joke or routine presents a common understanding. 2. Greg Dean's definition, statement with a negative opinion about a subject. Routine, a series of jokes, act-outs, and tags all on the same topic, premise, or in a funny story delivered by comedians. Remember, writing material and jokes is an ongoing process. It takes practice and refinement to develop your comedic voice. Keep experimenting, performing in front of audiences or friends, and paying attention to their reactions. This feedback will help you fine-tune your material. Ready to start your stand-up comedy journey? Our Level 1 course helps you build a strong original routine in just 5 weeks. Enrollment open at gregdeancomedy.com. Understanding joke structure. This is the most important knowledge you'll need for everything to do with writing and performing stand-up comedy. With a solid foundation of understanding how jokes work, you'll put your comedy career on the fast track because you won't have to spend years learning about structure, but instead put in your 10,000 hours practicing and performing. Learn how jokes work. Joke structure, often referred to as setup, punchline, and sometimes tag. Greg Dean joke structure, model of joke structure by Greg Dean, demonstrates the 2 sections of jokes, setup and punchline, which are linked by the 5 mechanisms of first story, target assumption, connector, reinterpretation, and second story are joke structure. After learning joke structure by Greg Dean, I could identify where my jokes were, then fix them, and also write new jokes at will. 5 joke mechanisms. In the Greg Dean model of joke structure, there are 5 mechanisms which connect the setup and punchline: first story, target assumption, connector, reinterpretation, and second story. Target assumption. One of the 5 joke structure mechanisms, the target assumption, is the expected interpretation of the connector established by the setup to misdirect the audience. Connector, joke structure mechanism at the center of all comedy, humor, and jokes. Defined as one thing with at least 2 interpretations. See ambiguity, as related to Greg Dean's joke structure and joke prospector writing system. This is one of the 5 mechanisms between the setup and punchline which explain how jokes work. Reinterpretation. In Greg Dean's joke prospector writing system, the step when several alternative interpretations of the connector, other than the target assumption, are listed as ideas to be expressed in the punchline. I know these are new terms even for accomplished comedians, yet these joke mechanisms will increase your ability to write material at will. Stand-up comedy and storytelling. Many aspiring comedians tell me they want to tell funny stories. What they don't understand is that it requires many more skills of writing and performing to tell stories, rather than just do one-liners. Here's a bit of what you'll need to know. Scene work. 1. Stand-up comedy routine, which includes a scene that is acted out. 2. When comedians from narrator POV set up scenes and then act out the scenes using self-POVs and character POVs to portray all the roles for comic effect. Storytelling. 1. The vivid description of ideas, beliefs, personal experiences, and life lessons through stories or narratives that evoke powerful emotions and insights. 2. As related to stand-up comedy and Greg Dean's anatomy of funny storytelling, when comedians tell stories from narrator POV to set up scenes, then shift from the narrator POV to inside the scenes and act out the self-POVs and/or the character POVs to expose the humor of the situations, characters, and conflicts. Narrator POV. one of three perceptual position or roles within Greg Dean's anatomy of funny storytelling achieved when the comedian talks directly to the audience to do jokes, crowd work, and set up scenes in stand-up comedy shows. Character POV, one of three perceptual position or roles within Greg Dean's anatomy of funny storytelling, achieved when comedians act out scenes and portray someone or something else. That character POV was spot on because he found that person's mindset. Self POV, one of three perceptual position or roles within Greg Dean's anatomy of funny storytelling, achieved when comedians act out scenes and portray themselves, not to be confused with narrator POV, which is not in scenes and only talks directly to the audience. Storytelling without scene work, 1. When comedians set up scenes, then act out all the roles. 2. As related to anatomy of funny storytelling, when comedians tell a story from narrator POV and set up a scene, then shifts from narrator POV to be inside the scene to portray self and/or character POVs, to express the humor based on the situation, characters, and conflict. Some of these terms are based on my anatomy of funny storytelling. This information will give a clear understanding of how storytelling is a series of skills. Lastly, never stop learning and evolving as a comedian. Attend workshops or classes to refine your skills. Study the comedy greats and stay up to date with current trends. The comedy industry is constantly evolving, and it's important to stay relevant and adapt to changes. In this blogcast, I've helped you with some of the terms and lingo of comedians in the categories of styles, show positions, being a comedian, material, joke structure, and storytelling. Browse through my glossary at GREGDEANCOMEDY.com so you can check off even more words as you strengthen your comedic vocabulary. In my next blogcast, How to Become a Comedian blogcast series, Aspiring Comedians Checklist, Speak Like Comedians, Decoding Stand-Up Comedy Terms, Part 2, I'll continue to explain and give access to my glossary of stand-up comedy terms with the additional categories of types of clubs, functions of clubs, equipment, audiences, performing work, and representation. These will fill out your vocabulary as you become a comedian. Laughter is contagious. Pass it on.